All right, so welcome to our final webinar in the orientation series, Start Strong, Resources to Help You Thrive at CUNY SPS. I am Angela Francis. Day to day, I am the Assistant Dean of General Education and First Year Experience. But most importantly, right now, I am your orientation facilitator. So I am very happy to see you here. I'm joined by Heather and Molly from the wonderful events team, for whom I am very grateful, and also by Zach, our captioner, who I am also very grateful to have with us. So if you are in need of captions, please do go ahead and turn those on. Just like always with us, if you have any questions for me whatsoever, please do remember to put them in the Q&A because I want to make sure I don't miss them. If you're having technical issues surrounding a question about the content, please do ask those in the chat. So for example, if you can't hear me all of a sudden, or you can't see my screen, please do put that in the chat. I also want to note, I already see we have a couple of people with their hands raised, and because we currently have 90 people in this session, I want to avoid having people actually speak. We're a bit too big of a group, so please use one of these options as appropriate. We're actually going to start today with a poll. So we have two questions for you. The first is, now that you've attended orientation, even if you haven't finished it, we want to know how you're feeling. So how are you feeling about starting your first semester? Feeling confident, neutral, not confident? There are no wrong answers at all. And then the second question, so we want to think about moving forward, what types of events or activities you might be excited to participate in. So if any of these options seem interesting to you, please go ahead and put them, just select them. Likewise, if there's something not mentioned, or there's a particular, let's say, academic skill, like writing, you would like a webinar about, go ahead and put that in the chat because we will be reviewing. So, for example, I know when I was a new student, I felt pretty comfortable with writing, but I actually have a speech impediment. And so I wanted some more help with speaking, public speaking. So if you're someone like that, go ahead and put that in the chat. We're going to give you guys another 20 or so seconds. All right, last call. Okay, so let's see what you all said. Oops. So when we look at how you all are feeling, it looks like the vast majority of you are feeling either somewhat confident or confident, and that's wonderful. I'm super glad to hear it. Of course, that's not everybody, and that's okay. So if you are not feeling confident, or you are only feeling somewhat confident, somewhat neutral, somewhat unconfident, remember, orientation is not over. So if there is a particular aspect of your first semester that's making you feel nervous, you can reach out to the peer mentors until Saturday. You can reach out to me even beyond that. If I can help you connect to a resource or chat with you about a skill, talk to you about what an experience might be like, please do reach out, because the more we work together, the better off you might feel. And I think even those of you who are feeling unconfident right now will find you hit the ground running better than you think you will. And I'm also excited to see there's a good deal of interest in all of these types. And I am going to peek in the chat. So I see public speaking, presentation skills. So I wasn't alone about public speaking. Well, you all have company. You have company in me. for a matter of fact. Um, and we have in the past given some trainings on giving effective presentations. So at minimum, I have some materials that I can provide to all of you. If you are in particular wanting to see a presentation on public speaking or presentation skills, you can actually go ahead and email me and I'll pass you a previous slide deck. Glad to do it. So thank you all for your participation in these polls. And we will be taking that into account as we think about our semester programming for you guys during your first term. So let's start talking about resources, because we promised you some tools, tips, and resources, and we do indeed plan to deliver. We will be are recording this, and we'll also provide you with the slide deck. So please do not worry about trying to keep up with me about these materials. There are a lot of resources, so really just focus on listening and maybe note something you want to go back to later. So we'll start with academic resources. One big one is ePortfolios. So we have ePortfolios on Digication, and these are tools you can use to provide a visual example of your growth academically. It's essentially an easy way to create a web page. And so we see students create these for a couple of reasons. It might be to highlight your personal achievements or your academic achievements. You might want to reflect on particular experiences. We've had students who use their ePortfolios as a website, so they'll link to it on their resume if they're job hunting. And there are also certain programs that do use ePortfolios as part of the program. So you may find yourself, for example, if you're a nursing student, building one of these as you go through your program. Things you can think about include just questions about who you are as a student, how your classes connect to each other, and the skills you're gaining with you that you really want to hold on to. And you can really express yourself because these are multimedia pages. So it's not just static words. You can also use videos, audio, all of those things are possible. So we have a resource, and I'll make sure you can see where to go in orientation to see a link to this directly. But there is an ePortfolio student resource site where you can see examples of tutorials, as well as some other ePortfolios that were made by other students. And there's also a showcase. So there is an opportunity for you to submit your work to potentially win a small prize for your ePortfolio. If you want help, there is the ePortfolios team, and in reality, to be clear, the team's name is Karen. She is wonderful, but you can reach her and anyone who is supporting her at the email address on the screen. You can also schedule an appointment, and they offer workshops to help you navigate ePortfolio. So if you are just hungry for another webinar, there will be an opportunity to see one about ePortfolios. We'll return to other academic options in a moment, but I want to talk about some other benefits first. There are outside organizations like the American Management Association that just because you are a student will offer you free membership. So this is an opportunity to access different types of courses to help with your professional development. I do want to note, however, that these are not credit for prior learning opportunities. So these are things for you to look at, see if there is a skill that you would want to develop to help you progress either with your career or otherwise. And you can see which ones are interesting to you. There's also, more internally, the Student Association Professional Development Grant. So this is a source of financial support for students who want to engage in professional development that's not free. And when this is available, the main criteria is to really show how this connects to your goals. And you can reach out to student services to learn more, or go to the URL on the screen. Outside of thinking about your career, because you are more than that, you can actually use your ID, your CUNY ID, to get free or discounted rates for all sorts of cultural institutions at New York City. So when I was a CUNY undergraduate, an undisclosed number of years ago, I used this to go to museums. I also used this to go to a show at Lincoln Center. And I was not making a lot of money at the time. So these were opportunities that would not have been available to me, even though I was a lifelong New Yorker, because I just couldn't afford them otherwise. So if you are in a similar state, this is a great reason to get your ID, because these are still available to you. If we're thinking about you as a student, though, there is assistance with planning your courses. So your first semester, you likely met with an advisor to really discuss things. That's not necessary moving forward, although they remain available to you. So if you want to start thinking more about your course planning independently, a key tool to use is DegreeWorks. And we do indeed offer trainings on this as well. This is an opportunity for you to see a personalized view of your progress toward your particular degree. So it will show you, for example, how the courses you've registered for the upcoming semester fit into that, what different requirements you haven't finished yet, how your transfer credits fit into that degree. And you can use the same login credentials that you use to sign into Brightspace to log into DegreeWorks. If you remember, my favorite way to log into Brightspace is through the cuny.edu homepage, and you can log into DegreeWorks through that same dropdown. If you find that your access is not working, that is something to reach out to the help desk for. And so during orientation, you can do that through the orientation discussion board, but afterward, you can access them by phone or email. We also have EAB Navigate, and this is a mobile app, so you can also access it on your computer. You can use this to schedule appointments with various offices, including your advisor, financial aid. You can use it to connect with the credit for prior learning team. This is a way that you can also engage with the community by making sure you're up to date on different resources. We will be sending out a temperature check for you toward the middle of the semester to see how you're doing and learn more about what resources you'd like more information about at that point. And it's also a way to make sure that you're staying on track toward graduation, at which point you will once again be working with that events team, but we will all be celebrating the other end of your journey. So there are lots of reasons to use EAB Navigate. And so we want to make sure you're aware of it. And for more information, go to the email address on your screen, excuse me, the URL on your screen. We've driven home credit for prior learning quite a bit, but I am such a fan and such a believer of it. I'm a little bit envious that it wasn't available when I was a student. So just one more time, I want to make sure you are all aware of this. Remember that this is a way that you can earn credit for what you already know that's at a college level. So just like going through orientation, for example, you have already done 30% of the materials for an exam that can earn you 1 college credit for $5. But you can also have a portfolio evaluated by PLA 300. And if you have certificates, certain certificates have already been evaluated. If this is interesting to you and you missed the live webinar with Holly Broadfoot, you can view that recording. We have pasted the link to that both in an announcement, but also if you go to the Get Started part of orientation. Now let's think about research, because I remember from our writing webinar that that was something that concerned some of you. First of all, Our home library is the Newman Library at Baruch College. And so if you have a CUNY SPS student ID with a barcode, you can not only access the library, but take out physical books. You can also take out books from other CUNY libraries. So if you are in a different, or you live in a different borough of New York, let's say Staten Island, you can go to the College of Staten Island's library if you have an ID card. Just has to be the one with the barcode and the photo. The benefit to using Newman Library is that we have a SPS librarian, Joseph Hartnett, who is available to answer your questions. And they are just also much more familiar with us. And so if you're thinking about finding a nice quiet study space and you want to reserve a space, you can do so at the Newman Library. You can also access electronic research databases from home, and you'll use your SPS username and password to do so. And your access to that depends on your enrollment. So as long as you are enrolled for the semester, you can continue to use the virtual resources. Some of the things that I would definitely suggest looking at the library page, so you can look at both interlibrary loan and our CUNY version of that as well. And so that's a way, let's say you live near CSI, you're in Staten Island, and there is a physical book you want to use for your research that is only available at Lehman. Rather than trekking all the way up to the Bronx, you can actually just ask the libraries to send the book closer to you. So those types of services are available to you, and I just want to make sure you are aware of them. I also spoke about Zotero in the writing webinar, but I want to just give you a bit of a plug about it again, because now is the time to use this. This is a free tool. It is not associated with CUNY or me. I just love it so much, because essentially what it allows you to do is organize your resources. So if you put the annotated copies of the resources you use for each final paper in Zotero, and you add a tag such as this is about ethics, or this is about a particular psychological theory, when you hit your capstone, you can just search by tags and see all of your notes and all of that information from potentially years back. So I am a huge fan of this. I'm an even bigger fan of this if you're thinking about potentially going to graduate school, but even just as an undergraduate, this could be a very useful time saver. It can also help you with citing your sources, though again, you don't want to just rely on it. So please do give it a look, particularly since it is free. Also free while you are a student is online digital access to both the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal. And so if you have not already taken advantage of these, please do so, because this will get you access, particularly in the case of the New York Times, to both the basic sort of, I want to view things online, and that can be useful to you when you are finding sources for your papers and your homework. But I also use it, quite frankly, when I want to explore games, or I want to explore some recipes. So you actually get quite full access through this. If you're paying for access right now, maybe you don't need to. And likewise for the Wall Street Journal, I suggest signing up for both, particularly since they are free. Other sources of support. So if you find yourself in an emergency, there are multiple types of short-term financial support that is available to you as a student. There are textbook grants for if you find you cannot afford the price of your textbook. If you find that you do not have access to the amount of money you need to stay food secure, there's a food access initiative as well. So we are an online campus. That means there's not a physical food bank, but this is a way that we can potentially help you with access to that. And lastly, but first on this page, the Petrie Emergency Grant is for when you find you are just in an emergency situation. So we have had students who find that they just may be facing homelessness if they do not have extra funding. That is a reason to reach out to the Petrie Emergency Grant. So information about all of that can be found at the URL at the bottom. And I do see that we have some people raising their hands. Again, please, if you have a question, I ask that you put it in the QA because I will make sure to cover it toward the end of this webinar. We also know that sometimes technology is not our friend, and that can be very bad when you are in an online course. So if you find that your computer breaks mid-semester and you need an emergency loan for up to 30 days, we do indeed have a technology loan program. You do need to be enrolled, and we will ship the computer to you at no cost to you. This does need to be an emergency, so I want to underscore that this is not something you can use to keep a computer for the entire semester. This is for a 30-day period. But please do keep this in mind because particularly during midterms and finals, trying to do everything on your phone or another mobile device can be very difficult. Other tools and software that you have access to. So you all hopefully are familiar with CUNY First, but if not, I just want to highlight it to you. This is what I think of as if you previously were at a face-to-face campus. If you think about where all of the administrative offices were, like the bursar and the registrar, I think of CUNY First as that area. So this is where you can go to register for courses. You can view your grades, pay tuition, view unofficial transcripts, and update your information. If you want to be an e-permit student, you'll also use CUNY First to do that. E-permit is when you take a course at another CUNY campus rather than here at SPS. And we most frequently see that for your gen ed courses. You also have access to Office 365. So if, for example, you have an Apple computer and you realize that you are just sometimes forgetting to use Save As rather than using a Pages file to submit a Word document, you can actually use Office 365 for free. And so you will use that also as a primary means of communication because your email is attached to this as well. And it's using that same username and password. Your username and password, just in case you aren't sure what it is indeed your CUNY First user ID. So that first name dot last name and the last 2 digits of your Apple ID. And then rather than that at login.cuny.edu, it is spsmail.cuny.edu. So you can see the example on the screen. Your initial password should have been or will be provided to you by email. These are sent to you in batches. So if you have not received yours by the night before the semester starts, please do go ahead and send me an email and I will make sure to connect you so that you have access to that email account. And you will, once you have access, go to the URL on the screen. You can choose either of these, either login.microsoftonline.com or portal.office.com, and you'll be able to sign in with those credentials. You also have free access to Zoom. So you'll go to the URL on the screen, www.cuny.zoom.us, and use that same username and password. This is particularly useful to you because a lot of your professors will indeed use Zoom for office hours. So you can use it for that. You can also use it if you find yourself in a course where you're using group work, and you want to try to have a synchronous meeting. But we don't police why you are using Zoom. So you may have other reasons to use this. Be aware that it is just a tool that's available to you. Likewise with Dropbox. So if you've got a lot of files you are hosting, go to www.dropbox.cuny.edu and use that same username and password to have free file storage. So I definitely suggest that, because I am indeed one of those people who, prior to working at CUNY and using this benefit, build up multiple Dropbox accounts. So just one more time, you can see that information about your username and password on the screen, and you would use it for all of the things that we have just spoken about. The access to your databases, access to scholarships, those resources, all of those would be here. While we do have a computer lab on campus, I do want to tell you it is not currently open. So we will hopefully be able to open the computer lab soon. And when that happens, we'll make sure that you are aware of it. When that is open, that will be an alternative. If you find yourself just needing to use something, use a computer when yours is broken, you'll be able to come on campus. But again, for now, please do take advantage of the laptop loan program. Other support, I just want to pause to talk about scholarships. So we have several internal scholarships. The applications tend to come up and be due in March or early April. But you can already go on our website to learn more and start thinking this term about scholarships you might be eligible for in the spring. Because I do know that even though we do have zero textbook cost courses, tuition sometimes can be difficult. There are, of course, also external scholarships. So while I personally and SPS personally cannot endorse external scholarships, we do want to provide you with some tips, and you can see more about those on the website. But just as a general tip to you, if a scholarship is asking you to pay an application fee, I would suggest being wary. Likewise, because you are busy, definitely make sure to review the requirements of that scholarship carefully before you apply, because we don't want you to spend time applying to a scholarship that, for example, does not award funds for people who are in your major. Definitely, as you are doing this, whether it is internal or external, please do note the application deadlines, because often there is less wiggle room on those. It is less common to get an extension. Most applications, you can start and stop them. If an essay is required, we always suggest composing any essay, whether it be for a scholarship or for your classes, in Word or some other word processing program. And remember that, as you'll see in a moment, we do have tutoring services. And this is one thing you could use tutoring to help with. Also, remember, financial aid with the FAFSA is something you will have to repeat. I'm sure all of you have gone through this process multiple times. But one thing that sometimes trips students up at SPS is our federal code. So just try to remember, we share federal code with the CUNY Graduate and University Center. And so you can always return to this document for more information about our school codes, both in terms of state aid and federal. Thinking federal, you also have other opportunities like the Pell Grant, subsidized loans. We do not currently participate in a federal work-study program. So I know that is a question that comes up fairly often that is not currently something we have, unfortunately. And thinking about undergraduates, which should be most of you, I do want to not, so it is something that not too many of our students are eligible for, but please do look at it to make sure, because if you are eligible, it is a great opportunity. Lastly, of course, there are private loans. In my view, these are a sort of last option, final course of action. Because as it says on the screen, the interest rates do tend to be higher. When I was an undergraduate, I did not, for some reason, think to go to the Office of Financial Aid to ask about different types of loans, and went and got a private loan when I would have been eligible for a federal one. And I had a lot of regret about that. So please don't be me. If you have questions about that, please do reach out to the Office of Financial Aid, and you will indeed be able to do that through EAB during the semester. Other really useful offices that we have, one of which is career services. And you may have actually seen either Shannon or Kelsey in orientation. So they are representatives of career services who are here to help you if you are trying to transition to a new career path, or just think through your options post-graduation. I always suggest reaching out to them sooner rather than later, because they may, excuse me, have suggestions for things you can do early on in your college career to help you with your professional career. They are also very much aware of things that we are doing on the academic side. So work we are having with the National Association of Colleges and Employers, internship opportunities, things of that nature. So in short, don't delay, don't wait until you are staring graduation down 1 or 2 semesters away. Reach out to them early, because they really can be of assistance. I mentioned tutoring earlier. So we have 3 services: the Writing Fellows, Quantitative Reasoning Fellow is 1 fellow, and tutor.com. Starting with the Writing Fellows, these are people who can provide you with assistance for any assignment that you are faced with at any stage of writing. So you do not have to have a full draft to make use of the Writing Fellows. They are graduate students at CUNY, and so they are also very familiar with navigating the CUNY system, and they work specifically with CUNY SPS students, and so may also be familiar with some of your assignments. We have 2 types of appointments: online and asynchronous feedback. We do not have in-person appointments with the Writing Fellows. And they also frequently provide webinars on APA format in particular. So if you are feeling very nervous about APA format, they are indeed available. We also have very similar services for quantitative reasoning, so your math courses. If you are like me and you feel more comfortable with writing than you do with mathematical equations or programs, or you sometimes aren't quite sure how to create charts and graphs, the quantitative reasoning fellows are there for you. And likewise, you can work with them online or asynchronously. And I definitely suggest taking them up on it, because even if you are thinking about how to be a better presenter, like it seemed like a handful of you were in the chat, sometimes part of that is making effective charts and graphs. So even if you don't need to work with them for your course, they may be a resource you want to work with for your professional development. That said, let's say you find you want some help with a subject at 2 a.m. your time, whatever time that is for New York. Well, if the quantitative reasoning fellows and the writing fellows are not available because it is outside of our business hours or their working hours, you can log into tutor.com for free as a student. You receive 10 hours every semester in the beginning of the semester. If you run out of hours, you can request more, and we may be able to provide them for you. And there are literally over 100 subjects that you can receive help with. If you are, if your first language is Spanish in particular, some of these subjects offer tutoring in Spanish. So wide range of subjects. They are not only serving SPS, so they will be less familiar with your courses than the fellows would, but they can still be extremely useful. Before I move on, to access information from within Brightspace, you can just go to the tutoring link in that blue bar toward the top of the screen to access both tutor.com and all of the fellows as well. If you have a disability or you are a veteran, I do want to make sure you are aware of the services available to you there as well. And I want to highlight that disability does not only mean a permanent disability, it can also mean a temporary disability. So if, for example, you are pregnant with complications, that counts. If you are in an accident, that can count. If, however, you have a permanent physical or mental, psychological disability, and you believe you may be eligible for some sort of formal accommodation, such as more time to take exams, reach out to Disability Services now, please, because there is a process you need to go through in order to get that formal accommodation. And while many faculty members are accommodating when you are going through or struggling through health crises, why risk it? Get a formal accommodation if possible, and then you know specifically what accommodation you are eligible for across your courses. I also want to talk about student life. So you can see the names and in most cases faces of many members of the student life team. And this is the team that is really putting out a lot of the extracurricular and co-curricular activities throughout the year, many of which are virtual, but some of which are on campus. So if you are someone who really misses that face-to-face aspect, the student life team can really help you find that community. You can also, however, find a community online, particularly because we have a lot of clubs, only some of which are represented on the screen. So I really want to encourage you as an online student to look at the different clubs that are available, some of which might be tied to your major, some of which might be tied to your identity, and others might be tied to your interests. Because I can say personally, when I was an online student in Ohio, so I was not in New York at the time, there were times where I felt really alone, even though I was in an online class. And I realized after the fact that it was because I was not participating in anything that was outside of the classroom. I was logging in, I was doing my classwork, and then I was leaving. And I felt like I was a school of one sometimes. So to avoid that, really do consider some of these opportunities. You can also really tune in by, if you are on Instagram, following the @SPS Student Life account to see more of what's happening. And what you can see on the screen are some examples of in-person or hybrid events we've had fairly recently. So those are indeed happening. And I also just want to give a shout out to the events team who is here, because this event could not happen without them. And likewise, a variety of events throughout the semester could not happen without them. You can learn more about all of the events that are happening throughout the semester on our website. You can go specifically to the events page, but also on many pages, you'll see a list of events happening as well. These are generally hybrid or fully virtual like this one, and can include guest speakers, citation workshops, the types of events you were expressing interest in during that second question in our poll. So please do go look and see what events are available, because they are hosted throughout the semester, and there are quite a few. I'm going to pause here to spend a good bit of time on student counseling services, because I personally am such a believer in them. And we have free counseling services offered thanks to the people who you can see on the screen right now. Specifically, if you are someone who has never received counseling or engaged, participated in counseling, it can help you with stressful situations, whether or not you have a formal diagnosis. It can help you if you're just having trouble balancing all of the demands that are being placed on you in a moment or regularly in your life. And at SPS, counseling is free. It is free and it is confidential. So I really want to make sure you are aware of it, because I know that for certain populations, mine included, sometimes there's a stigma against using these types of services. And I will just say openly, I'm someone who in the past has used them and benefited from them, and probably would not have been able to achieve some of the things I have if I hadn't done so. So again, they are free. There is no charge. You do not need health insurance. They are remote. You do not need to come in person. They are confidential. So something you say to one of the counselors or the members of that office during a session will not be shared with me, with a faculty member, with a member of the staff. We will not know. However, and it will say this on the next slide, I just want to emphasize, email is not confidential. So if you reach out to the counseling services office by email, please do not put anything you want to remain confidential in that email. That said, it is customized as well. So counseling is not a situation where you will be sitting necessarily in a group call with a bunch of people receiving sort of out of the box care. It really will be tailored to your needs. Because as you can see here, to get started, email them or call them. You will schedule an initial consultation that will be about an hour long to discuss your situation, your history, to answer some questions. And at the end, based on what you tell the commission, they will suggest a plan of action for you. There is no obligation to use it. There is no obligation to ever speak to them ever again. But if you find it sounds helpful, you can use it then. If you are someone who wants to use other services besides those, you have access to some other ones. I'm going to stay on this screen for long enough that you can take a picture of that QR code on the slide. But one of those is Together All, which is an anonymous community where you can gain peer support, not just limited to SPS, but globally. And they have courses available to help you deal with some common concerns. So for me, that would have been procrastination and social anxiety for sure. So they stay here for just a moment longer, but this is one tool to really think about taking advantage of. Another one is if you are in crisis. So you do not want to wait to meet with one of our counselors if you are in active crisis. You also do not want to use Together All if you are in crisis. but you can use the crisis text line using the information on your screen. This is confidential. It's available 24/7. The volunteers are trained and can give you referrals if you need. So if you are really having a moment where you don't know how you are going to continue if things don't change, please do be aware of these services. So just to sum it all up, crises, they do happen. There are resources available to you. I hope that one of the three main ones on this page will be something that, if this happens, you feel comfortable using it. Remember that you can use that text line. You can use NYC Well if you are a New Yorker, and you can also use the Lifeline either by calling or chatting 988 or 988lifeline.org. So I hope it's clear just from the amount of time that I'm spending on this. I really do believe in this. I think it is an important aspect of care as you are a student and throughout your life. And I hope that you'll take advantage of some of these services. Beyond that, other types of help you may need may be technological. And if that's the case, the help desk is available. So they have been available to help with CUNY First and Brightspace during orientation. They can also help you with your email, your CUNY SPS account, and just general technology questions. So while you can reach out to them during orientation in the orientation site, they remain available to you throughout your time here. You can look at their contact hours, but I always suggest sending them an email. I find email is often best with this office. When you reach out to them, it is particularly important that you include your EMPL ID. And in fact, I strongly suggest including your EMPL ID whenever you reach out to any office. If you've reached out to me from a non-CUNY SPS email address, there's a good possibility that I have responded asking you for your EMPL. And that is because that is how we can look you up in the system. We can see what your situation is, and then we can provide more accurate guidance. So I want to pause here to look at any questions that are in the QA. And then if there's time, I want to just highlight some things in orientation and some other next steps. So there's a question about health insurance. So we do not provide health insurance at the undergraduate level, which is part of why those resources are so important. If you are having a health crisis, though, and you do not have health insurance, you can reach out to me and I can look into, with the help of student services, if there's a way that we can be of assistance. I'm going to hold on to the question about how to get the student ID for a moment, because I'm going to show you exactly where in orientation to find that information. And instead, I want to focus on a question that one of you've asked, and I'm going to read part of the question out loud. The question is, does the SPS Career Center and all SPS teachers prefer to promote a student who only has strong mathematics, business brains, or strong art, intuition, vision skills? Or what if you have many diverse skills or talents? So I feel comfortable answering this question with my non-orientation hat on, because my non-orientation hat is first year experience. So helping you during your first year. And it is also overseeing all of our general education courses. So working with faculty to support them and also scheduling your gen ed courses. In both cases, we really do want to help you, particularly if you have diverse skills or talents, or if you are not sure you have the skill yet that you would need to succeed at a particular endeavor. So, for example, if you are in a math course and you do not feel comfortable with math yet, we are hoping to work with you, and the faculty who are teaching those courses are used to working with students who are not comfortable with those skills. That is the same case with the QR fellows. One of the main people working in the QR fellow office is actually an SPS graduate. So has experience, knows what it's like, and is working with you from that point of view. I've also worked just because the Career Services Center was shouted out in particular, and I can tell you that Shannon and Kelsey in particular also are used to working with students who have a range of abilities. That said, if you are someone where it's not only an issue of having certain skills feel stronger than others, but it is a case where you are, for example, dyslexic, or you have a speech impediment like I do, those are things where you might want to reach out to the Disability Services office, because those are situations where accommodations may be helpful. Question, are we taking our courses in Blackspace or Blackboard? Excuse me, Brightspace or Blackboard? The answer is Brightspace. So for SPS, we are done with Blackboard for your courses. The only thing you may be logging into Blackboard to do at this point is to complete Spark, which is the sexual misconduct module. So your classes at SPS are in Brightspace, which is where your orientation is. There is also a question about if you need to obtain an ID. I'm assuming this is talking about the APA seminars and things of that nature. No, you do not need your ID for that. Classes will become available the first day of the semester. So in this case, that is the 28th, and they become available usually by 9 a.m. So if you do not see your course by 9 a.m. on the first day of classes in Brightspace, because we all have to get used to not going to Blackboard. So in Brightspace, send me an email. I'll look to see why. All right, let me stop sharing for just a moment, because I want to show you guys where to go in orientation for information about a couple of things. And also, I want to show you one other screen, because I think I have about 5 minutes left. So, a couple of pages that are useful. So this first page that you can all hopefully see, and can I get some thumbs ups if you can see a browser window, please? Beautiful. Oh, I love to see it. Okay. So this is on our CUNY SPS homepage. And to get to this page, you'll click here where it says current students. This will lead you to a page that has a list of quite a few resources, many of which I covered during this webinar, with email addresses. And remember, I mentioned how you could learn more about upcoming events. This is one of those pages where you can see it. And I actually am going to click more events just so you can see. You can filter. Look at that. It's us. But here's an ePortfolio webinar. So if that ePortfolio information sounded interesting, you can sign up for this. You can sign up for Career Link, which is with Career Services, right? There's more. Some of these will not apply to you, but I'm just scrolling for a moment so you can see just how many there are, and more are offered all the time. So this page, this current students page, top of our website, and you can see links to all sorts of useful information. Within orientation, so I'm going to skip to the Brightspace homepage. You can access more information. You can access the library. You can also access student resources. I'm going to click on this just so you can see what's there. You can also access college resources. That includes student services, the bookstore, and EAB Navigate. From within orientation, I want to highlight a particular area, and that is the final module. So I'm going to view this as a learner because a lot of the questions you were asking about resources can come to module 3, and you can access a couple of things. So first off, for those of you who are asking how to obtain an ID card, we have a PDF document right here with all of the instructions for this semester. So please go here to find this information. That said, I'm going to go back one page because we have this file or this page with information about all sorts of resources. So career services, tutoring, ePortfolio, the help desk, course evaluations, the laptop loan, all of these have pages available to you here. And if I click on one, let's pick career services since there were some questions. You can see there's information as well as contact and a link to the website. If I go back to the module, I also want to show you that we have information about safety as well as the non-discrimination policy in this area. These are very important. And when you finish working in orientation, we have our exit survey here. This is the last thing you should do to finish orientation. So when you've finished all of the other tasks, just come right here. And if you had questions about how to earn a college credit through credit for prior learning, that's in the what to do next area. I'm going to review the questions that have been asked throughout these webinars, and I'm going to add more resources to this page. And you will continue to have access to everything here except for the orientation exit survey after orientation is over. You will be able to access this page throughout the semester, as well as all of the other information and the other parts of orientation. So I want to make sure you know you can always reach out to me at orientation@sps.cuny.edu for any questions you have. And you will also during the semester hear from me from another email address, just firstyear@sps.cuny.edu. Last question I'll answer because it came in. There's a question about coming to campus. So if you want to ask about coming in person, you're going to want to reach out to public safety at the email address on that PDF. Our building does indeed have elevators, so it is indeed accessible to the point that the front door actually has a button so you can press it and the door will open. So I hope that gives you a sense of how much we care about accessibility there. All right, so that is actually time. I hope that this final orientation webinar was useful to you. I really did enjoy getting to engage you all throughout these webinars, and I appreciate you making the time for orientation generally, but these webinars in particular, since I know that you signed up for an asynchronous school for a reason. I hope that you found these useful enough that you will check out the semester-long services and programming we'll offer. And again, please do take me up on it if you have any questions whatsoever. I actually really do like hearing from you. So please do reach out, and please do feel free to reach out as you approach graduation, because I love to know when I get to act foolish for you as part of the stage party. So thank you so much for being here. I really am hoping that you get started in a great way, feel wonderful and positive. But if not, please do reach out so I can help you get there. Thanks again and have a wonderful evening. Take care.